There's been a big debate lately on what I would consider a sport. I mean, what would you consider a sport? Would you consider marching band a sport? Would you consider dancing a sport? I'll give my thoughts at the end of the show about it. But stay tuned because still got more to come. All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. It's been a while. Let's just say that of Sports Status Podcast. Like I said, it's been a while, and I'll explain everything when we get closer towards the end. But we've got a lot. I've been gone for 2 weeks, and we've got all 2.5 weeks. Got a lot to cover. Start off over in the hockey side of things. Last year, the Colorado Avalanche play against the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They win game 1, win game 2, but then they lose game 3, 4, 5, 6. That was aggravating. That was aggravating, but any team that goes through a 4-game, I wouldn't say sweep, but lose 4 games in a row to a team, get eliminated from the playoffs, doesn't matter how much you were up. If you won game 1, if you had a 2-0 lead, if you had a 3-0 lead, it's aggravating. But keep in mind, before they faced the Las Vegas Golden Knights last year, they went up and faced the St. Louis Blues and swept them 4-0. What happens this year? Game 1 of our series against the Nashville Predators, we win. Game 2, win. Game 3, win. Game 4, win. You get the picture. Going into round 2, game 1, we won that game yesterday. It was close. It was a close game. Blues fought hard. And keep in mind, this is the same St. Louis Blues team that we swept last year in the playoffs. I'm sure they have a little bit of that going on in their mind as they're facing us against us this year. I'm worried. I'm worried Now, even though I still think Colorado will take this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go full on homer and just say that Colorado is going to win the whole entire thing. But I'm worried to see what will happen in game 1. I mean, game 2, game 3, 4, and 5. I don't want the same thing to repeat 2 years in a row. Now, moving on to the other side of things. Tampa Bay Lightning. They have another, or let's just say, playoff rematch. They ended up beating the Florida Panthers last year 4-2. There was an article, my very first article that I posted on any website, was actually about a game a game that happened in that, where apparently last year they wouldn't allow, Tampa Bay Lightning would not allow the Florida Panthers fans to wear a Florida Panthers jersey. In fact, they wouldn't allow any other jersey to be worn inside that stadium except for a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey. Day after I write that article, and well, the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning decided that, hey, that's not real. Day after that video gone viral, and day after I wrote my article about it, Tampa Bay Lightning decided to change their mind and allow other teams to wear their jersey. But that's another day for another time. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, the Tampa Bay Lightning play the Florida Panthers and they win game 1. But I'm a little worried about, and I'm not a Lightning fan, but if it was, should I be worried about the Lightning in this series? They struggled badly in round 1. They struggled out badly. Actually, I'm going to pull that up real quick on my thing here. Just bear with me one moment. Pulling up my notes here. Tampa Bay Lightning, they win 4-3. But that game 7 was the only game that was actually close for either team. Game 1, Maple Leafs beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 5-0. 5-0. Save percentage for the Tampa Bay Lightning was at 87%, and the save percentage for the Maple Leafs goalie was at 100, obviously. Shots attempted was 24 for the Lightning against the Maple Leafs, while the Lightning, their shots for the Maple Leafs shots attempts were was 32. The Toronto Maple Leafs are year after year after year after year after year, really since 2008, have been a team to choke in the first round of the NHL playoffs. Every year that they've made it, they have lost since 2008. But they haven't really won a Stanley Cup since 1967. I think, if I had the stats correctly, They're the most popular team in Canada. Game 2 of the Lightning versus Panthers is tomorrow. Panthers have the home field advantage going into Game 2. They do throughout 4 games in this series. I will give my picks after explaining everything else that I'm about to say. But the Tampa Bay Lightning, Game 6 also was another one I forgot to mention that was really more. I felt like it was more competitive as the series went on. Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, Game 4, that was more blowouts, I should say that. Lightning beat the... There was really not one game through Game 1 through Game 4 where 3 goals was really what separated the difference. Now, today, 3 goals separated this difference between the Lightning and Panthers. Now, question for the panel here. Do you think we're going to see the exact same thing go on? Do you think the Lightning going to end up winning this series? I don't. But do you think the Lightning are going to win the series? How many games do you think it's going to take? And do you think that we're really going to see the same thing that we did in round 1 with Maple Leafs as it gets more competitive as the time goes on? So, before I move on to the next sport, I wanted to go ahead and talk about picks for each game in round 2. The Panthers go out. Panthers Lightning, talked about that one. I already said the Panthers are going to win. I stick to that. The Panthers won. I think the Panthers are going to win this game 4-2. Lightning is going to win one more game, but Carolina is going to win the next 4 out of the next 5. Avalanche Blues. Like I said, I'm worried. I'm worried about this. Now, the winner of Avalanche Blue, if Avalanche win, I think that we're going to the Stanley Cup. And I don't think that's going to be a close, not even close. I don't think we're going to. I think we easily have the winner of Calgary and Edmonton Oilers. Easily. I think that's going to be. We have them easily. But I feel like this is going to be a little bit of they have a little bit of a revenge, so to speak, against us. So I'm taking the Avalanche, but it's going to be more like a 6, maybe 7 game series. I doubt it's going to be a 4-0 sweep. Carolina Hurricanes versus the New York Rangers. I think that the New York Rangers are the only NHL team, across all 4 sports, in fact, all 4 major sports, to play in a play-in game or a playoff game and get the number 1 overall pick in the lottery draft. They did that in 2020 when they lost. I think they lost in the 3-0 sweep against Carolina. Carolina moved on. They faced Tampa Bay the next round. But the Rangers really, what they have as they would go into the playoffs again, what they have is goaltending. Easily goaltending. The Carolina Hurricanes didn't put their, Hurricanes won, but it was an overtime game. And the Carolina didn't even score until late in the third period. The Rangers had this game 1-0 easily. Now what they lack a little bit more is maybe some offensive firepower. Usually, you would see a lot more low-scoring games for a New York Rangers team. I think that Carolina has this one, but it's going to be close and competitive as well, because I think really if you have a good goalie in the playoffs, that's what's going to get you a long way. That's what that was the difference. Honestly, I think that was the difference. That was the reason why the Montreal Canadiens they made it to the Stanley Cup last year. It was because of goalie play. That's also the reason why I think Colorado lost 4 games in a row. It wasn't a 4-0 sweep, but it was 4 games in a row last year against Las Vegas was because of goalie play. You have to have very good goalie play in order to make it very far. I'm just saying. And that's why I think Carolina will take this, but I wouldn't be surprised if New York will see upset. I'm going Carolina in 7. Speaking of good goalie play, good offensive power. Well, what in the world did we just see from the Calgary Flames and the Edmonton Oilers? That so far is the highest scoring game this year. 9-6. Connor McDavid gave you a goal, gave you 3 assists, 4 points. Leon City gave you a goal, gave you 2 assists, 3 points in the game. Zach Hyman led the Edmonton Oilers today with the most goals in this game, but they still lost. They put up 6 to still lost. Rasmus Anderson. Now look at the other team. Rasmus Anderson, 1 goal. Andrew Mangiapane. I really do not know how to pronounce that dude's last name. Mangiapane. 1 goal, 2 assists. But 3 goals. And I think that's really what separated the difference is really between those 2 guys right there. And Blake Coleman and Matthew Tkachuk. 3 goals for Matthew, 2 goals for Blake. I think, and Matthew Tkachuk, his shot, he had 8 attempts to make a goal. Shots on goal, 8. Led the team today in that number. There's only 2 players today that didn't have a shot on goal. And that actually, there was 3. Michael Buckland, Mil Lukic, and Jacob Markstrom. This was really a very more of a team effort. There wasn't really, there were some players that stood out, but this is really more of a team effort from both teams today. And I have Calgary winning this one. Give me 4-2, so 6. Okay, so no comments. Okay, so moving on to the next topic. National Basketball Association, NBA. Game 1 between the Boston Celtics, Miami Heat. Game 1 versus the Boston Celtics and Miami Heat. Celtics had way too many injuries going into that game, and Miami won 118 to 107. But to be honest, I kind of expected that. That's not really what we're here to talk about. Golden State won against the Mavericks. Yeah, I'm not here to talk about that. What I am here to talk about is what happened in round 2. Chris Paul just felt like he got permission to not show up in the playoffs after he turned 37. And the Mavericks gave the Suns the biggest blowout by any NBA team that I've seen blow out a number 1 seed team. Now, I'm going to be fair. with you guys. 2017 was the first year I started following the NBA. That year, keep in mind, was the last year that the Denver Nuggets didn't make the playoffs. That year was between Denver and Minnesota to get the right for the number 8 seed. They didn't play a game to get the right for the number 8 seed. And the Phoenix, now going back to this year, Mikal Bridges, 33 minutes in the game. How many points did he score? 37 minutes by Devin Booker. Only 11 points. Cameron Johnson was the game leading scorer. Yet there were 3 players by the Dallas Mavericks who put up more points than Cameron Johnson. The number of points that Jalen Brunson, Luka Doncic, and Spencer Dinwiddie put up was more points than my age. The most number of points that Cameron Johnson put up was 12. And yeah. There's one player that I wanted to talk about a little bit more. Chris Paul. Every time he has a 2-0 lead in the playoffs, 2-0 lead in the playoffs last year, it happens again against the Milwaukee Bucks. Chris Paul was on the Phoenix Suns team when the Suns won the first 2 games of the finals. Milwaukee won the finals. Dallas won this round. Phoenix won the first 2 games. It happened 6 times for the dude. Now, there was a legitimate question on ASAP in the morning that I wanted to bring up again. That I wanted to bring up for those that are watching. I want to bring it up again. Damon, he's known for all the silly questions, but he has something serious. He said, "Who is more of a playoff choker, Chris Paul or James Harden?" James Harden can't make it past the second round. It doesn't matter what help he has. Chris Paul, on the other hand, no question he had more help around him than James Harden. James Harden, most of his career with the Houston Rockets, was no help. There was not a lot of help around. I guess that's what I'm trying to put out there. Chris Paul, on the other hand, has Devin Booker the past 2 years. I can't believe I'm about to say this. James Harden was another guy that could put up 30 points a night. So even though that James Harden was still a playoff choker, he's still a big guy that can give you points, especially in Houston. I mean, not the Russell Westbrook of now, but Russell Westbrook back then was a little bit different. He had Chris Paul with him for 1 year. So Chris Paul had a little bit more around him. I almost said Kevin Durant. That's not true. I don't think so. Anyway, James Harden had Kevin Durant. That's probably why I'm thinking that. To be honest with you, would you put... I could see the Suns rebuilding that franchise, and I think it starts off with DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul. Both of those two. I think they're going to be gone. I don't think they're going to be really at that top 4 seed the next year after the rebuild. West is strong. And so is the East. NFL schedule came out. Actually, one last thing. One last thing, NBA. Round 3. Talk about the playoff picks for a second. Dallas Mavericks are down 1-0. So they can't sweep it, obviously. And the Celtics can't sweep it. But you notice something with the Mavericks that I seem to have noticed. Round 1, they faced Utah. And Dallas Mavericks in round 1. They have a competitive match against Utah. It's pretty competitive. But they lose. They lose round 1. And it was close. Round 2. Another one. Suns basically beating by 7 points. Game 3 was more of a blowout, I'll give you. I mean, game one of this year was more of a blowout. I think the Warriors are more of a stronger team, obviously, than the Suns and the Utah Jazz. And I think really with this team on their own, they really can't. They have their own roles that define how this team structures really well. But individually, I really wouldn't say that the game's best player today, maybe even the top 3 range, you would put in that conversation. You put on that team. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Steph Curry's good 3-point shooter, but he's average on everything else. Average defender. Average everything else. But shooting threes, he is excellent. Celtics, I feel like, are the same thing. The one thing that really concerns the Celtics is their injuries. So I really got to see how long are the Boston Celtics players, how long are they going to be out for? I'm leaning. Obviously, Miami won game 1. I have the Celtics taking the series. But if the Celtics players do not play throughout the series, I'm slowly going for Miami. I think Miami might pull this one. If there's not that much injuries left. If they're still dealing with injuries by the time the end of the series happens. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So, Celtics, Heat, for now, I would say Celtics in 7, maybe 6. Mavericks, Warriors, I'm taking Warriors in 6. And we're having to have a Warriors Celtics, possibly Warriors Heat in the finals. Now again, moving on and going away from NBA, NFL has, there's 2 things I wanted to point out. They released their schedule, and the New York Jets, I don't know why I'm interested in this conversation, but in a sense, the Jets are the Jets. So they're probably going to struggle, fall on their knees, see ghosts, throughout this entire year. But I'm a little bit worried this year because their first 8 weeks are tough. But what I wanted to know is why in the world, NFL, did you put the Jets facing the AFC North the first 4 games throughout the entire year? throughout the first 4 games throughout the entire season are against all 4 AFC North teams: Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns. I think it's in that order. And for those of you that are watching right now, I have a question. I want to see what you guys are. Drop a comment. See what you guys think about my other NFL take. That I want to see what your thoughts are on this. Do you think that Thanksgiving and Christmas games and any game that you travel out of the state, say outside of the country, say, well, I'm just gonna throw one out there: Seahawks, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Packers, Giants, 49ers, Cardinals. Obviously, that one's gonna be a primetime game. They even said that because that's gonna be a Monday Night Football game because that's in Mexico. But Seahawks, Buccaneers are in Germany. That's the farthest the NFL's done. And I'm curious to know, why did Seattle have to travel that far? And 2, would you consider that a primetime game? Yes, it's on a Sunday. Yes, I get that. Yes, it's not Sunday in the U.S. nighttime. I get that. It's probably not going to be a game that the U.S. is excited for, especially since the Seahawks are playing. But what about Germany? Are the people in that country going to be excited for that? It's the only game throughout the year that's going to be played there. So, why not? What makes a primetime game a primetime game? I'm going to go ahead and play a couple of ads and then get back to you in just a little bit.
Shanig, man. Fuck with ASAP Sports Network, man. Tune in, stay logged in, and stay mouthed in. You dig? Yuck mouth. Yada da. Boy!
Hey, I'm straight up off the block, hopped in the phone and pushed the top back. I've been hustling for a long time and I can't stop that. Big like I'm it, best believe it, and them all back. Yeah, I be ballin' all the time, I'm point guard and a quarterback.
Check out the Sports and Culture Media Group as well as other shows in the All Sports All Plays Network for more content and not just in podcasts. I've got a couple of articles out there in the ASAP network, but also there's been a lot of writing going on in the Sports and Culture Media. So stay tuned in for that. There's plenty more articles to come, and check out the ones that have already been published. Now, back into what I was talking about. Major League Baseball, the Cincinnati Reds have had a rough start to their year. As time goes on, eventually they've been on a little bit of a I wanted to say winning streak, but they've won more in the last few games that they played. They won more games than they've lost in the past, say, 8, 9, 10? And then you come up, face the Pittsburgh Pirates. Throw no you threw no hitter from pretty much most of 7 innings. 8th inning goes by, and 3 Pirates players are walked. Still, by statistical stats, that's considered a no-hitter because none of the Pirates players have hit the ball. But 3 players are walks. That puts 1 run on the board. There was a steal base too. One of those 3 players has stolen the base, and therefore that puts 1 run on the board. Now the Reds are trailing 1-0. 9th inning, they end up losing. They lose to the Pirates 1-0. I mean, who does that? Who throws a no-hitter and loses? Last team to do that was in fact, all of Major League Baseball. There have been a total of 5 games, and there's been 14 million, and only 5 times that it's ever happened. That's 6, including a couple nights ago. That's probably something the Reds fans are going to have to live with for the rest of the season. It's funny. And the Reds probably going to get the number 1 overall pick in the MLB lottery draft this year. Just saying. Now, going in, that's just a little quick thing about Major League Baseball. Talking about some other stuff here. Major topic before we get to the question that I asked at the beginning of the show. National Lacrosse League. I haven't really covered that as much as I would like to admit on the show. But playoffs are around. And there's 8 teams left. But if I have to be honest with you, lacrosse does their playoffs kind of weird. Well, round 1 is a one-and-done elimination. Boom, you move on. If you win, you move on. You lose, you go home. Teams to do that so far are the Seals and the Mammoth, the Bandits and the Rock. They're in round 2, but round 2 of National Lacrosse League playoffs are best out of 3, which is fine. I don't have a problem with it being best out of 3. But every single game in the playoffs is either on a Friday or a Sunday. So literally it takes you 3 weeks, maybe 2, if a team goes out and sweeps another team in the in round 2. It takes you 3 weeks at most to determine if who's moving on to round 3. Or should I say the finals round. Week 1 of the 3-week schedule, Colorado Mammoth beat the Seals 14-12, and the Rock ended up losing to the Bandits 18-17. Now, going into round 2, since the Mammoth have the lower seed going into week 2 of round 2, they actually have the home field advantage. And then if the Seals ended up winning, despite Colorado's home field advantage, they will have the home field advantage in week 3 of the second round of playoffs. Now I want to see, those that are watching the show, what are your thoughts? Do you think that lacrosse will should have it like that way? Do you think it was smart for them to do it that way? Or do you think that, maybe it should be like one and done, just like football is? Or keep it so where they play more than just the weekend? I want to see what your thoughts are. And then last but not least, the question that I asked at the beginning of the show. What classifies a sport? It's been a debate that goes around. It's been going around forever. Is marching band a sport? Is this sport? Dancing? Is rock climbing? Etc. Etc. My definition is basically going off of the dictionary definition, which I'll pull that up in a second. I think really the two things that classify, I did not pull that up. Anyway, two things that classify a sport as a sport is if there's competition involved, and if the competition is there's comes with physical exercise. Now, I could see the argument. WWE, it's scripted, and I get that. So what's the whole point of competition? All this kind of stuff. But then those people go around, those people say that WWE is a sport, but dancing, which maybe not to the same level that wrestling is, but dancing, like Dancing with the Stars, and Dancing with the Stars, any sort of scripted performance that involves dancing. Those people go out and say that isn't considered a sport, but wrestling is? I'm sorry, that confuses me. Now, bowling and ping pong, I can understand the argument about it being a sport, but to be honest with you, I don't think it's as much of a sport as some of the others, because I don't really see any physical action. There's competition, yes, in both sports. Don't get me wrong. Physical exercise, though? That's a debate for another time. There's one other topic there's one other sport, and that's marching band. Now, I don't think there is one downside that I would consider to Marching Man, and that's, you are being judged just like dancing, from Dancing with the Stars and stuff like that. But there's a lot of prop work that has to be involved, so that would cost a lot of money. Um, so even though I played Marching Man in high school, that's really the one thing I love the sport. It's very, very, very competitive. There's a lot of people in it. Um, there's a lot of talent that goes into not only playing your instrument but also marching out there on the field. That's really the one downside. I still consider that a sport. And that pretty much just about wraps it up. Stay tuned every Saturday, mostly, but occasionally throughout the rest of the week as well. Especially on days that I might have missed a Saturday show. So most of the time I'll be alive on Saturdays, but stay tuned occasionally if I'm not. And follow all the other shows on the All Sports All Plays Network, whether it's on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, even watch this on Roku, watch this on TV Live, watch this on Fox D. There's definitely a lot of content coming up, a lot of great things in store, and it's been another episode of the Sports Status Podcast. Signing out for now. Peace.